The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
Hey, Kara Oosterhuis here with RealAgriculture.com. I am back here today with another Canola School episode, and I have here with me Warren Ward, who is an agronomy specialist with the Canola Council of Canada. How's it going today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Kara?
I am doing good. So we are here today to talk about, soil sampling and kind of having that plan right at this time of the year, especially after a drought-stricken year. It's been dry across the prairies, and we kind of want to talk about why this year of all years you're going to want to get out and soil sample. Do you want to tell me why?
Yeah, so it definitely has been a bit of a challenging year, and anytime we see that and yields were lower than anticipated, so we want to go and see what's left in the soil in terms of nutrients, because there's a good chance everything that we applied this spring probably wasn't used up. So now more than ever is a great time to go out and do some soil testing. And the way I like to look at it is it's really part of that broader 4R management plan. So if we think about 4Rs, that's the right source at the right rate, at the right time, and in the right place with regards to fertilizer. So when we talk about soil testing, we're really diving a little bit deeper into the right rate, because we're planning for next year now, and fall is a really great time to get out there and do that soil testing. And this year, more than ever, it seems like, just because there's a good chance there's higher than normal nutrient levels left in the soil after that challenging year.
Now, another thing with soil testing and that we're facing this year is we've kind of had a really open fall. It's been warm. What sort of temperatures are you going to want to be doing that soil testing at?
Yeah, so ideally, I like to tell people that we go as close to freeze up as possible. And the reason for that is once that soil cools down, there's less biological activity happening. The nutrient levels aren't as subject to change at that point, and that'll give you a really accurate picture of what will be available in the spring. So normally we like to say kind of 10 degrees or lower is a really good time to start that soil testing process. In a year like this, though, we can't wait forever to get started on it either. And rather than waiting and missing the boat, I'm all in favor. I mean, we're into October now. The nights are starting to cool down a little bit. I think it's a really good time to get out there and get started on the process. And for most people, I mean, most farms, they're not going to do it themselves. They're probably working with an agronomist of some sort, whether it's from the retail or an agronomist that they work with. And so those people are going to be busy and have a lot of fields to cover as well. So make sure you're talking to your agronomy professional and getting in their queue to get some fields done this year.
Now, if you are actually, because there are some farms that will do it themselves, if you are going through that process for the first time, do you want to talk about what some of the things you're going to want to pay attention to when it comes to soil sampling? Not testing in certain high spots or low spots, things like that?
Yeah, it's gonna vary a little bit for everybody, just depending on what you want to get out of it. Some people are going to just want a good average indication of that field of what it is. So you're taking that composite sample, like you said, from average areas of the field, avoiding the low spots, avoiding the high spots, and just trying to get that, average production estimate and see what's left in the soil in those areas for nutrients. And then using, taking those nutrient numbers that are in the soil, using next year's yield goal, and then just seeing what the difference is there. And that's what our right rate is going to be for next year, is the difference between that soil test level and your yield, the amount you'll need to achieve your yield target. Now, some people are going to want to do a little bit more in depth than that too. So there's, if we start thinking about zone management within a field and variable rate applications, now we're breaking the field into different zones or production capabilities basically, and so each zone is going to get its own set of samples, and then we can really kind of focus in on on how to manage each zone appropriately.
Now, another thing you guys are looking at when it comes to, like you said, the whole 4R story as a whole is you're looking at the right source. Do you want to talk about, if things are dry and you're seeing more nutrients in the soil, how does that play into it?
Yeah, so I like to think of the 4Rs. So we're focusing a little bit on the right rate, but the other R's are important too. So source, timing, and placement. And so now if we start thinking about what is the right source, if someone was looking to do some fall banding, I would, stay away from any of the fertilizer sources. I'm thinking nitrogen in particular that can that contain nitrate in it, because that is more subject to losses. So think about your ureas and maybe your UANs, or sorry, not UAN. So UAN would be one to avoid in the fall because of that nitrate component. But anhydrous ammonia would be an option again in the fall as well. The other thing to keep in mind, so we're right places in the soil, but we want to be careful, under these dry conditions. We want to make sure if we are applying fertilizer in a band this fall that we're getting good soil closure over that band. And so what that might mean is going a little bit deeper than normal just to make sure we're getting that soil to close. And if it's really not working well, then maybe just actually waiting until spring to do that operation and make sure we're doing it the best we can. So source, timing, placement, they're all going to affect each other. So as we look at timing, maybe going into next spring, if conditions are still really dry and maybe, we do have a little bit higher than normal nitrate levels in our soil, maybe we want to cut back a little bit at the time of seeding, but we still want to plan for success. So maybe that plan would be to come in and do some top dressing in season. So that's, we're changing the timing of that application and, maybe even the source once we get into that top dress application. I always like to look at some of the enhanced efficiency fertilizers at that point, just because we know we need that moisture or rainfall to move the nitrogen into the soil profile where the plants can use it. And that's not always as predictable as we'd like. So just protecting that investment by looking at what source you're using becomes important. So really when we think about 4 Rs, each of those Rs are interrelated and do impact each other. So a little tweak here, maybe, or a change that you have to make because of environmental conditions, now you can come back and adjust that or account for it in some of the other Rs.
And now just to reiterate, of course, every year we're having the soil sampling conversation, but and we have said it, but just to really drive this home, why are you going to want to make sure you do it this year of all years?
Yeah, so this year is a kind of a, I think, like as you said, it's more important now than ever, and the biggest reason for that is that, we're seeing that there are higher than normal nutrients left in the soil just because of the fertilizer that you applied this spring. It wasn't all utilized growing the crop this year, and that we can nail that one straight down to environmental conditions. So the good thing about that is if it was so dry that those nutrients weren't used, when it's that dry, they're really not going to go anywhere. So for the most part, anything unused should still be available in the soil, and we just want to be able to account for that, because a colleague of mine last week made a comment that really stuck with me. He said, you can't manage what you don't measure. And that makes a lot of sense with regards to nutrients, right? If we're not measuring what's left there in the soil right now, to figure out that right rate for next year is just a guessing game. So if we want to be as accurate as possible, just from an economical standpoint of how much do you need, it really will help focus in on that.
Okay, great. Any other insights or messaging you'd like to share to any producer watching right now?
The last thing I would say is that so 4R management is important, and if you are working with a 4R designated agronomist, they can actually, if you have that 4R plan in place, then your acres can be accounted for in the 4R nutrient management program that is housed with Fertilizer Canada as well. So it's a good program, and whether you're participating in it or not, I do encourage people to. But at the end of the day, it's these management practices that we really need to, such as soil testing, that we really need to see people using this year, just because there's a lot of positive impact from them that will happen on the farm.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you very much for your time, Warren.
Thanks, Kara.